Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
There's Celia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We have people that span the planet. We have, I think, every time zone included in this experience of Zooming together. What does it mean that we're Zooming together? Has anyone looked up the etymology of Zoom? That could be fun. I mean, that it's like a keystone to what's happening in our life expression right now.
I remember when Zoom was so new that you could call them for support and they would pick up the phone on the second ring and you would get a live person to talk you through how to work out your problem. Oh,
Mhm.
those days.
Those were the days, my friend. Okay. Wow. See, Celia comes in, and I just start like rocking out and singing. This is just like just a hint of the energy that Celia brings in. You too will uncontrollably start singing strange songs from the past when referencing strange moments of the future. I don't know, putting it all together. Okay. So as we come in, I invite you just to find your breath. Find your breath together. We're still letting people come in, but let's just see if you can. Celia's going to really do something, but before I introduce you, just to introduce her, just giving yourself a moment to find that still place at your desk. This is where I love to say hello, Yasmin and Kariana and Janet and Deborah. I could see Deborah's story yesterday. Whoa, what a story! We've got a cosmic being among us. Lisa, hi Ray again, and Jody, Iowa, Vivi,
Ooh, there's the etymology of Zoom.
oh, really? Holly from Idaho. Hi, Megan. Dominique, Katja, Wendy, Miss Brittany, and Clemmy. As always, I always invite you to turn your videos on because it's so much more fun. And Carrie and Fiona and Loke. What's the etymology of Zoom?
Looks like Kariana found something in the chat.
Oh,
Came in with aviation in the early 1900s, it looks like. Okay.
quickly move closer. That's kind of fascinating to quickly move closer, especially since it like puts you all up center. Huh. There you go. All right. Well, I am, as you can tell, a little exuberant this morning. Celia Alario is in the house, and it's so much fun when Celia Alario is in the house. I've had the opportunity of working with Celia for, oh my God, like what, over like 15 years now? We started off working on, oh gosh, what was that? It was a film about Vietnam veterans. We both have
Sir,
a real
no, sir.
sure, no, sir. And both have a real passion for storytelling and specifically working with it as a tool for social change. And so Celia and I got to be friends in the activist community and working with several different films, several of them rather controversial. I'm not going to even tell you what they're about because your heartbeat will start pounding if I tell you even the topics. But we got to really get in there and really understand the psychology of change, how to work with story as a tool for a transition, how to really bring groups together to take action. And I've also had that great privilege and pleasure of getting to know Celia is in the realm of to say PR, is like such a small part of the excellence and extraordinariness of what Celia brings to this form of communicating your vision and your purpose and your message in the world. And so I got to join her at the UN climate talks in Paris, but we also worked in several other UN climate talks when I was producing the Green Channel for Al Gore, and she helped me just bring in some amazing people to get their voices into the world. So she's really like talking about getting your voice into the world. This is probably one of our extraordinary experts on the planet right now, and it is a joy to bring her. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her specifics. That's just my love of her. But she coaches change agents and caregivers towards a life of greater vitality, pleasure. We're not kidding about that, optimum well being, and full, authentic expression of their heart's desire. I mean, how lucky are we to be with her today? And she's, from the United Nations climate negotiations to mass marches in the streets to U.S. Santa Barbara's environmental studies program. Celia has trained thousands to use their voice in service of their vision in ways their audience will find irresistible. Celia, would you write my bio, please? Celia succeeds. Celia sustains her own wellness through an alchemic mix of yoga, hula hooping, and practicing the art of non attachment. Bred by New Yorkers and raised in Los Angeles, she alternatively chases her poodle, and she's not kidding, across the majestic red rock landscapes of southeastern Utah. Um, I would say that one other thing that I'm going to tell you about Celia is that she has been someone who has radically transformed my understanding of what it means to be an activist in the world. And we were just saying, I was like, you know what? You scrubbed that some strange lens that being an activist meant this vow of poverty and scarcity. She helped me like see that lens and pop it out. And that's a whole other story. But without further ado, I'm so excited to bring to you Celia Alario, and may your day be filled with delight with her. I'm going to put her on speaker view, and then if you guys want to go to gallery view, up to you. But that's
Yeah,
from there.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I will. We'll get you that scrub recipe. I see your note in the chat. So thank you for the introduction, and thanks to all of you for the opportunity to play with you today. And I have to say that one of the biggest gifts that Leah has given to me was the recognition that bringing my full playful childlike self, or bringing my full spirituality and weirdness into my training and my coaching was actually a good thing. That I had been restraining myself in the interest of being professional, and I was not really fully in alignment with everything that are my gifts in the world, and watching everything unfold with all the things that Leah offers, but particularly this long process of this Speak Your Spark has just really inspired me. And so thank you, Leah, for reminding me and for being a stand in the world for the idea that you got to bring your full self, and that's really when the magic happens. And you can imagine some of the things we're going to do today. It's hard for me to get DC environmental lawyers to do. They really just want to know, how do I look good tomorrow on MSNBC? They don't want to necessarily crawl around on the ground and make animal sounds, or do some of the visioning that we're going to do. We're not going to do that today, but we are going to do a bunch of visioning. And so anyway, it's just been really great, Leah. Thank you for the reminder and that opportunity to step into the work in a different way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to invite everybody, before we get started, just to take a little bit of time to do some grounding. And so, get comfortable in whatever way you want, sitting, standing, if that's better for you. And if you're comfortable, maybe take a moment and close your eyes and just drop into this amazing inner space here that is yours. And I want to invite you just to take a couple of deep breaths. Just notice how that feels to breathe in, maybe your deepest breath of the day. And have a nice, relaxing, clearing exhale. And just take a moment and just be in gratitude for this miracle that is our ability, this involuntary thing that is our beating heart and our breath. And let's just take a moment as we drop in to do a little coming to our senses. So notice, if you can, a few things around you that you hear right now. It may be your breath. Perhaps it's my voice. Connect in those birds or the sound of the fridge, whatever it is you hear. And then take a moment to notice a few things you can feel. Your feet on the ground, or your bum in the seat. Perhaps the parts of your body temple that are speaking to you. Some of mine talk to me. And even with our eyes closed, there's that interesting array of shapes. Notice a few things you can see. Take in a few things that you can smell. And a few things that you can taste. Perhaps it's even the absence of taste on your palate. And as you're in this centered space, I want to invite you to think about the remarks or the words that you have contemplated bringing to this space today. And I want to invite you to take your hand and just lightly touch your head. And as you do, ground in on one thing that you know your brain, this incredible intellect that you have, is really good at when it comes to preparing to express. What can you offer gratitude for your intellect today? And then take a moment to find your heart and touch your heart for a moment. And think about a quality of your love, of your compassion, of your heart that you're proud of, that you're even known for, perhaps. So much to be thankful for. And find a place that's comfortable for you to touch on your belly or your core. And just ground into one way in which you've taken action through your expression that feels like right action, that feels like right work. And then when you are ready, just notice how you may feel a little different than when we started, having celebrated those aspects of yourself. And maybe wiggle your fingers and toes, shake your body out a little bit, and then as you feel ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes and come on back into Zoom room. Okay. All right. Looks like everybody's arriving. Awesome. Um, in terms of just a quick overview of what we're going to do today, the flow of this is something that is truly a almost like a smorgasbord of public speaking skills. So we're going to step up to a long buffet today, and the buffet is a methodology of truly preparing our minds and our bodies and our hearts for expressing ourselves in the world. And I know that some of you have been in this in program for a while around speaking your spark and finding this journey from a vision to your voice and your expression in writing and story and with your voice. What we're going to do today, I want to invite you to notice in the same way you would at a buffet table. We're going to have little tastes and helpings of things, and it might be that just the little bit of that experience, a conversation about multi-tracking or strategy or personal ecology or what you do with your voice or what you do with your hands, those little things we're going to touch on today, sometimes just the teeniest bit of it on your tongue is what you needed. There are going to be other moments where you say, wow, this is so nourishing and so delicious. I could spend a month, I could spend 3 months, I could spend a week or 2 hours on this. And that's probably true. That's a good thing. So just notice that as you go. What do you long for more of? What does simply the attention focused on do for you with those things? Because part of what's happening is you're gonna get to build from this introduction to all of these things today, a little bit of a fitness regime or a program for yourself, a meal plan for yourself for how you might continue to work with some of the tools we'll play with today over time as you continue to hone. So part of this is about expecting unfinished business, and part of it is the recognition, like, ooh, yummy, I like the way that tastes, or wow, that really is a nourishing, energizing exercise. I need more of that. That's fuel for me, because that's what you're looking for. Essentially, we're looking for a really clean fuel to nourish ourselves with as we do this work. And the other thing I just want to offer is that I'm sure that you've had this conversation with Leah, but I just want to recognize you for your willingness to give gifts, because essentially stepping up and saying, I want to communicate something. I have something that is going to move through me, and the divine's energy is going to come through. It's going to swirl together with my words and ideas, and I'm going to offer something to the world. And that kind of gift giving is powerful, and um, not everybody does it. And all sorts of feelings that we have to, all the feels we have to feel that come up as we do that. It's a powerful work and a vocation. And so I just really want to honor each of you for your willingness to be amazing and to be vulnerable and be remarkable and put yourself out there in this way. So this is serious, powerful work, and so the accolades on the upfront here are important. So thank you for being in this space. We're going to play a little bit with different ways of thinking about vision and goals and strategy. Just quickly, we're going to go to the part of the buffet table that is about the big why. We're going to look at your content through a couple of different lenses, in particular, a deep clarity and deep love affair with our audiences, whoever it is we're talking to. We're going to get into some of the actual hard skills around style, what happens with your voice, what happens with your hands, and how do you play with that and perfect that. We're going to get a chance to practice and get some feedback from each other. And again, like, notice as you dip into these flavors as we go, where you might want more for yourself. There's lots of tricks and tools and hacks that I've created and also been given and explored over the years with other people who do this work. And I want to just name that there are a couple of really important influences in my life that have supported me in bringing this kind of work forward. And there are too many to name, of mentors, of people who were not naturally great public speakers, but they worked at it. Because it isn't a skill that you either have or you don't, but they allowed themselves to transmute their fear and their urgency into practice that allowed them to be really good speakers. And these were people who were out to protect the oceans and the forests and the deserts. And then there are also a handful of people for whom this type of practice and skill is what they offer in the world, and it was their art. And so I just want to give thanks to folks at the Spin Project and Fenton Communications and the Center for Story-Based Strategy and Rainforest Action Network and Greenpeace and Sea Shepherd, and I won't go on naming, but there are a lot of places where I found my way into this work. And then there are also a number of spiritual practitioners and teachers who have given me the gifts of taking the tools that are essentially in transformational leadership development, and personal growth work, and bringing them into communication. So all of those people, my guides, my ancestors, my teachers and mentors, also are here with us, and send their warm greetings to the journey we're about to play on together. I want us to be able to get into your exploration. So I'm not going to spend too much time laying groundwork, but I want to lay a little, just so that we have an understanding of some tools to ground ourselves in our vision and our path. And also so that we're mindful of where we might want to do some more exploration and thinking. And for those of you who know of yoga, there's the idea of a dristy, the idea that there is something that you can look at, and you created a soft focus on it, right? You're not staring at it hard from across the room, but the soft focus on it is what allows you to keep your balance when you're doing some wild stuff with your, getting your feet standing on one leg or what have you. So I think that for me, the conversation we're going to have about vision is essentially a bit like a dristy. It's something that will be a soft focus for you in any way that you communicate and present. And it's the thing that guides you so that you know where we're going. And so two ways I want to sort of frame up the big why. People talk about what a lot. We spend so much of a focus on our content. What is it we're going to say? What's the story? Who are the characters? How do we bring it forth? And then, what are the specifics of what our words will look like, and et cetera, et cetera. And I appreciate the what is important. And I know that Leah is holding you, and all the other classes, the presenters are holding you at times in that what. And so I really want to give some big props and some big love today for the big why, because the big why is the thing that I think, again, becomes it becomes the clean fuel that we can use to harness to really stay focused and run the stories and the energy that we need to use to be our best selves in public speaking. And so there's two ways that I want to look at the big why today. One is a little bit more strategy and wonky, and the other is takes us into a little bit more of our spirit and our life purpose and our intention. So I'm going to do a really quickie on getting your game on. This is the more strategic, wonky one. So your game, you got to get your game on. Here's what we're talking about. The game being goals. Why am I communicating? What is all of this about? What do I really want from this communication? Your audience, and we're going to love up on them in a minute. We'll get deeper into them. Message and messenger, that's you. So really thinking about what needs to be said. That's your what, the content, right? Your what. But also you as the one that's saying that. So there's really two M's in this game. So goals, audience, message, and messenger. And then engagement. What is the way that you're engaging them? And of course, if you're preparing to do an interpretive dance, or if you're preparing for a story that is going to unfold in a beautiful performative way, you're engaging people in a different way than if you're preparing to go on the radio and talk about a community garden program that you're starting or what have you. So being conscious of that engagement. And we're not going to do much with the engagement pieces today, but this is where, am I using social media comes in, or what am I going to wear even when I'm going on stage? What is the background? What props do I bring? All of those things are part of the engagement conversation. But I want us to just spend a minute or two in thinking about the goals piece, and thinking about what is it that I really want to achieve. And one fun, you're getting a bunch of fun acronyms here in this first little bit. I like WAIT, which stands for why am I talking? And I use this with my nieces who are tweens, and a lot of times we really actually need it, because there's that grounding that just brings them right back. Okay, like, I love this. We're in an awesome conversation. Let's ground in on the WAIT for a minute. Why am I talking? And again, that purpose, that big why that allows you to really understand that these communications are alchemic acts that are actually piece by piece, moment by moment, constructing the better future that you have dedicated your life to, And when we think about the sacredness of that, then all of a sudden these communications really take on a different kind of experience and gravitas, and we can notice a way to find and place our attention on the content in a different way. And I want to dig in a little bit for a moment here on this question of the A in the game, which is audience. And I actually like, and I don't know if you've had these conversations yet through the year long program, I'll bring it in case it hasn't been here. Maybe this is a refresher for you, but to really be thinking about one individual person that you can imagine that represents that audience that you're speaking to. And again, in our wonky communication strategy, if we're trying to get the mayor to allocate the space for us to do the community garden, we might even actually dig in on who is this person? What do they read, watch, and listen to? What was the last book they read? What did they post on Facebook? We're actually doing what people in marketing might call audience avatars, where you're actually constructing a person, an identity. A lot of times I'll just think about someone that's in my life that is important. If I'm trying to have a challenging conversation with my big sister, I just think all about her because I'm focusing on her, and I'm applying these same tools that I might apply to preparing for a talk to the relationship that I have with my beloveds, because it's time to have a challenging conversation maybe. But I think about what I already know about them. And again, I might even do a full inventory, particularly about what they might already think and believe, what's already inside their sort of filter bubble about the thing I want to talk to them about. What are the assumptions that they're coming with? And even beyond assumptions, this audience, this person who represents my audience might have an opportunity to be freed and liberated through the communication that they're going to experience with me. And there may be mythologies, control mythologies is how the Center for Story-Based Strategy talks about them, of how the world works, limiting belief systems. And it may be that my communication with them not only helps me to feel great and actually, gets the what accomplished in terms of saying what needs to be said, but that there's actually an opportunity for me to help them unlock some of these control mythologies, the things that they have been making up that have been limiting their imagination. And these can be things like women don't do that, or you can't beat City Hall, or that's just the way it is, or the markets will save us, or technology will save us, or we're fine now that so-and-so is in the White House, insert your favorite here every 4 years, and these things are often very limiting beliefs, and these control mythologies are present. And so when I'm grounding in and I'm thinking about my vision and why I'm communicating, why am I talking, I'm really thinking about how my experience in the moment with my audience can be helping me to get the job done, and how my experience in the moment with my audience can also create greater liberation, greater freedom, greater imagination for them. So I do a lot of this micro macro. I think about a lot like bungee jumping. You start where you're going to jump from and you're way up high and you can really see the landscape, and you're getting that bigger view on the reason and the vision and the goals and for your communication. And then you leap that holy jumping off point and you start to communicate and you go wing. And as you're in that elasticity, you get to get way down into the weeds of the specifics of some of the communication. But then look what happens again on the bungee, right? Wing, back up again. And you're getting that 30,000, or maybe it's only 20,000 or 10,000 foot view, but you're back up again and you're seeing the big picture, and then you're going back and forth. And so that fluidity, part of that playful fluidity of being able to see the big picture and see the vision with that soft drizzy, that soft focus, and then being able to get into the specifics of these are the words, and this is how I'm going to do what I'm going to do with my hand when I say that word. And when it comes to story and that kind of performative stuff, you're in incredible hands with Leah. Most of the people that I coach and train are going to be on the radio, they're going to be on television, they're going to be speaking at a TED Talk or something like that. And so it's a whole other game, and sometimes a little more stuffy than the way that y'all get to communicate when you play in story with Leah. But that ability to go up and down and get into the weeds and the specifics while also holding that larger vision, to me, that is isolating and flexing the strategist muscle, the strategy muscle. And that's what we're looking for. For activists and change agents, for people that want to move institutions and make change, the game, goals, audience, message, messenger engagement, works. It's a great way to plug in, but it's not the thing that's necessarily the one that works for you. So we've had a taste of that. But in this same area of side dishes on our strategy buffet, our public speaking buffet, is another way to look at this, which is really thinking about a future that you want to be creating. For some of you, the words you're going to create, the stories and the speeches and the talks, the hard conversations, the easy conversations, are actually linked to your life purpose, linked to a world you would like to see. And so dropping in, not just on the goals in that sort of strategy way, and not just on the audience in terms of where they're at, but also on that long lead time vision of how you being bold enough to express yourself is actually helping to continue to fuel and set in motion the future that you want. That piece is something that, whether you're a master storyteller or a spokesperson for a human rights group, it's an important part of your meal. So we're going to have an opportunity to do that piece a little bit right now. And I want to invite you just to think about this from the perspective of what you decided you're going to share today. And if you haven't figured out yet what you're going to share today, that's okay too. But if you came ready with something to share, you can think about this from that perspective, or you can think about this from the perspective of the thing that you think of as your vocation, as your purpose, part of why you're on the planet. And if you're sitting here right now thinking, I don't know what that is, that's cool too. Again, you're recognizing like, ooh, there might be some work to do. And, you know, between Leah and myself, there's probably a dozen toys and parlor games we can share with you around personal vision statements and personal mission statements and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, we'll figure out what that is. For now, I want to invite you to think about what is motivating you, what the long game is, the long vision is that made you bring whatever you're going to talk about today to the class today. And just think about three words about a future, about a way that life can be, that you're excited about or committed to. Just three words. Just kind of ground yourself in three words right now that describe that point out in the future. That if people heard you, experienced you, took it all in, the world would be different. That if that ideal audience could think, be, feel, do something different, believe something different after knowing you and hearing from you. What are three words that start to lend towards that? So take a minute. Don't overthink it. There's no wrong answer. Fame, fortune, motivation, acknowledgement, you know, this healthy planet, you know, a world without hunger, you know, there's no wrong answers. I'm a big yes and person. So I want to yes and a couple quick things here also before we sort of really jump into some articulation around this future state that we're speaking toward. There is the way the world will be different. And there's also the way that this benefits you. And sometimes they are the same. If there is justice, if there is a healthy planet, you know, that serves the big world, the greater good, and it also may serve you. But it is absolutely 100%, I think, okay and exciting to think about, okay, I'm communicating because I have a vision for the world to be this thing. And I'm also communicating because I want this for myself. And so three more words maybe around what you want for you from this expression. To be in service, to be heard, to be understood, to be a thought leader for this thing, to be recognized as the authority on this thing. Again, noticing if it takes time and these words aren't coming right away, cool. You know, you can take this outside with you somewhere. You can go to one of your favorite places later. You can, you know, notice that this is something you need to come back to. If some words are coming right away, that's okay too. We're going to have a chance in a moment. I'm going to lead us into a quick scenario, closed eye scenario, and then you're going to have an opportunity to be in pairs to see what emerges in this conversation about vision, goals, and future state, you know, for your communication. So I want to invite you, if you're interested, feel free to close your eyes, but I'm going to give us a setup. I'm going to take us to the future. so that you can meet in a Zoom. This is, talk about a cool Zoom feature. You may not know that Zoom has this new feature where you can go into a breakout room and you will be 5 years in the future and in a different place than you're standing. I think this is a Zoom Pro feature that Leah's managed to somehow get. It costs a little bit more each month, but so we're going to get an opportunity to use this new Zoom feature. And I'm going to set us up for that. You still will have to, once you open your eyes, accept going into that breakout room, but I'm going to get us ready for zooming into the 5 years into the future. So again, if you are interested, you can close your eyes, whatever is comfortable for you. But we're gonna find ourselves standing over a desk calendar, one of those old school desk calendars that you see in the movies, or that maybe your school teacher had way back in the day before we had calendars on our phones. And you're going to notice that it says in those big block letters, May 6th, 2021. And now you might start to notice sweetly starting to kiss your face a breeze, which is about to become a fairly big and fast moving breeze. And it is fluttering the pages on that calendar. And get ready to watch them go by fast, because the pages are flying by. And there goes the rest of May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And oh, it's 2022. And whew, the pages are flying off the calendar. Oh, there goes Valentine's Day and March, April, May, June, July. Oh, so fast it's moving. The pages of 2022 are flying by. You can barely catch the days as we slide into 2023, and there they all go. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Maybe you caught the glimpse of your birthday number as it went by. There goes 2023, and the pages are fluttering and the wind is lifting her hair. And again, there goes 2024. All those days on the calendar flying by, flying by, flying by. Okay, wow. And there goes 2025 is starting to go. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. The calendar pages are flying, flittering about in the room. And all of a sudden now we're in 2026, and the wind is starting to slow a little bit as we go January, February, March, April. Oh, and the wind is fluttering to a stop. And take a moment to look at that old school desk calendar, and it says May 6th, 2026. 2026. And you now, by the power of the new Zoom feature, are going to have an opportunity to find yourself in a momentary meetup. Just 5 minutes or so each, an opportunity to talk with someone who, oh, I remember you. We were in that year-long program, or maybe we just caught one or a few of those Speak Your Spark programs with Leah back in 2021. I remember it was so great to be in that with you. And what's happening? What's gone on for you? How is the world different because of how you left those workshops and master classes as a communicator? How in these 5 years into the future are your goals and your visions being manifest in this future state, deeply impacted by the way you used your voice as you found it ever strong coming out of that program in 2021? And there's so much to share with your former compatriot from the Speak Your Spark program. So exciting to have a chance to do that. And so now you're going to get a chance to have that little bit of one-on-one time here in 2026. And you should get an invitation to a breakout room, the 2026 breakout room. You get to spend about 5 minutes each in this conversation about how the world is different, how your vision and goals in this future state has taken form, thanks to the intention and clarity and incredible grace with which you have been using your expression and speaking your spark since the class. So head over there into the new 2026 Zoom room. Enjoy some time with each other, about 5 minutes each, about this vision and how this vision and future state you started working on 5 years ago is taking form. And we'll see you back here soon. All right. There's a little bit of dog barking here in 2026. I'm apologetic for that, and it may continue. I just want you to know. It's so good to see you all again, and it's really great that we're having this reunion and that you got a chance to check in with your folks over what's been going on around the future you've been creating in your vision over the last 5 years. But there's actually another version of yourself that's waiting, and we've got to go back to 2021. So I want to get us there before anything else happens. So eyes open or closed as you wish, but again, find that vision of that desk calendar where we landed on May 6th, 2026. And oh, I bet you know what's going to happen. You can feel the flutter. That breeze is coming from the other direction now in the space. Hold on to the desk, because here we go. And the pages are flying back on. So we are going in reverse, counting down the months of 2026 until we start to see December, November, and onward of 2025. It's all going to come on pretty fast. Hold on to the edges of the calendar, because we are going whoosh, all those numbers and months are flying, and 2024 is fluttering back on, and 2023 is coming back on, 2022 is coming back on, and here comes the end of 2021. There's the holiday season and the autumn. Oh, and there's a harvest moon in there, and we're going through the summer, and oh, things are starting to quiet and settle down as May flutters into place. And the last final page that comes onto our calendar is May 6th of 2021. You're back. Okay, this Zoom feature is so darn cool. So we are grounded now back into today, but with this foresight, this incredible future state, the vision becoming manifest, the goals becoming manifest that we saw in that future state. Welcome back to 2021. We are here now. And as you all were away in the future, I was thinking of that Audre Lorde quote, and I just put it in the chat. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength, and I would put in there my voice, in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid. And this is really what this is about, right? This is vision to voice from, end to end. And so if there's any important noticings, questions, comments, we could take a few from what you experienced out there in 2026. And I know you all are good at having things that will serve the room. So we can take a few of them, so to speak, and share if you would like, if there's something that you'd like to share. And Leah, how does that happen? Do people just unmute, or they use a hand raise, or how do people get with you when they want to come off mute?
They can raise their hands and you can see them, and we can ask them to come off mute.
Okay. And if you're still ruminating, or there's not anything you want to jump in with, that's okay. But it looks like Megan's up for it. And was that you too, Miss Brittany? Was that you wanted to pop into? No. Okay. What about it, Megan?
I just wanted to say how cool it was, because I was sort of nervous to share about my experience. And then Anja had a tempo and a cadence of speech that totally slowed me down and grounded me. And her vision was actually a part of my vision. And her way of communicating was a necessary medicine for me to successfully communicate. So that was amazing.
Yeah, I love how the random triad and dyad and triad breakouts are anything but. There is an alchemy even inside the ones and zeros of Zoom. And I love how we find ourselves with those who we need to hear expressing or whose vision is shared. Yeah, so lovely. Anybody else want to jump in with anything? Clemmy, is that you? Hand up?
Yeah. Yeah. So Zoom keeps putting me with Loke. So we're getting deeper and deeper with each meeting, and it's wonderful. And of course we're on the same page, but we're coming at it from different directions. And that's what Loki shared, which is that we're each bringing our own piece. The big vision on the outside is not dissimilar, but we're coming at it with our own sort of secret sauce. So that was really fun. And I also like the way you did the whole calendar pages visualization.
And I'll offer that, since you mentioned that some people I know, myself included, have needed to do a version of this every day, once a week, once a month, until we landed it. And so sometimes we've gone to the future and you run into somebody at the airport. Sometimes if you're on your own, you could pick a magazine that you would like to see your vision on the cover of, or maybe even you're on the cover of, and you can take yourself through the calendar standing over that desk and then come out and do some drawing or designing a headline or the cover of a magazine that this is coming manifest in. There are a bunch of different ways that you can do this. And I will also confess, friends, that I have needed extra help sometimes around vision because I was noticing that my vision was limited by reality. And I couldn't see the steps in between the injustice and the hardship we were living in the present and where I wanted to go in the future. And so I had a mantra that I had to toss into the game when I did this, which was regardless of the evidence, regardless of the evidence, regardless of the evidence, because the way that I was going to find my way to a place where we were truly living in a way that we had healed racism and white supremacy and colonialism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we had come to that great turning, as Joanna Macy talks about it, and we were really in some kind of ecological U-turn. Man, I couldn't see it, And so I chose the 3 words for myself and my vision, and the 3 words of the vision to articulate the vision I was holding, started choosing them every day. I did personal mission statements, personal vision statements, designed my superhero identity and what my outfit would be and what things I would fight with and how would I be, and who's my League of Justice. And then every day, regardless of the evidence. So this is like one of a series of exercises. And again, if the taste of this on your tongue was all you needed, rock on. And if you need practices to do this every day or once a week, then yeah. Ooh, I see an official couple of hands up with the hand raising in Zoom, Leah. You see them, I'm sure you see them too.
Ray, do you want to go?
I just want to say quickly that the striking thing for me was listening to my partner Fiona, and her vision was so clear and so specific. And it was so different from my idea of not knowing and somehow wanting to change the power of the universe.
And there's so much room for both. I mean, if anything that we're learning as we begin what may or may not actually be an emergence out of this incredible pandemic time is that the skills of being in the clarity are important and worth honing, and the skills of being comfortable, perhaps even being comfortable being a stranger to ourselves as we navigate the not knowing, is also so important and so exquisite. And don't let anybody tell you it's a soft skill, because being able to be comfortable in the not knowing and trust and move forward, even in that, when there's still a murkiness, when the horizon of the vision is warm and hot, and it's kind of hard to see it in its clarity. Like, it's so important. And so the honoring is also, the honoring of ourselves, the self-compassion with ourselves for the moments that we have the clarity, and for the way that we can gracefully meet the times we don't. Thanks, Ray.
Gaida?
Gaida.
Thank you so much. I just want to share that with my partner, Yasmin. I was speaking of a story of healing and freedom for everyone, and women specifically. But it felt so big, and it felt very like, just because I was saying the right words. 5 years now, when I've done this and the world is, and I was just like, yeah, right. And then Yasmin, my partner, she said that when we own our own voice, then the manifestation is just inevitable. And that made it so much easier for me, because I was like, oh, so if I show up and if I commit to my vision, then I don't have to worry about how big it is and how impossible it seems. So it's very similar to what you were saying. And that just gave me a guideline as to what I need to focus on, instead of focusing on the big vision that I just didn't believe could happen in 5 years.
Yeah. Gratitude to you and to your partner for that. Again, stripping away the mythology, stripping away the limitations. This is our space, this is this is our imaginal realm. This is our future state casting, calling forth realm. And there's so many places outside where we get limited. How do we allow ourselves the freedom in our own space? And then feel into that. And it's cellular, right? If you can feel on a cellular level, regardless of the evidence, this is my I statements, if I can actually feel it coming forth, really start to hold it as a possibility, then the steps begin to take form. And I don't know if any of you have ever crossed a creek, where you start out and you're kind of skipping across some rocks, and you get to a point where you just don't really know which one is the next one. I often do it holding a small poodle, and and I might have to backtrack and find a different way, or I may have to leap, and it may be a bigger leap. I might get wet, but that process of, if we think about what nature teaches us, even our own bodies, right? The tracks, the rail tracks that a cell takes to become the kind of cell that it is, are being built just in front of it, like inside of our body. These cells, you don't know when they're first forming what cells they're going to be. Are they going to be part of my skin, or part of my liver, or part of my heart? What would the role of them be? And they're just moving along, living, becoming, and allowing that track to be built just in front. Those steps, the next step to emerge just in front of where they are. And so what can those amazing smart cells in our bodies, or the things we see in nature, teach us and remind us about this trust? Let's do this one more. Kariana, is it? Kariana?
Yes, Kariana, you're right. Yeah, for me, it was amazing how fluidly I have two things that I've always been really passionate about, and I was focusing mostly on one, but how the other one just snuck in right in there and interwove with the one I was focusing on so beautifully. And it's like, oh, these really can work together. And I've always known they could, but I couldn't find the way to articulate it so clearly, and it just came so clearly. So it was kind of neat how that works in the future.
And just a reminder that, when we do these things, comparison is a trap, right? That our ego sets for us. And either if we have a great closed eye experience or a crummy one, you can always find someone who had a better one or a worse one. It's a learning, right? It's a noticing. So in the places where there's clarity, it's a humble celebration and an integration. For the places where there isn't, it illuminates this opportunity to play more and to do more work and to think around more play, and to think about how we want to hone it. There's also another sort of yes and is that the guidance, right, that comes in from so many places that gets integrated into this, right? So this is not necessarily a brain intellect exercise, right? So how do we integrate intuition? How do we integrate the way in which we're guided by the moon and the stars and the ancestors whose hands are gently at our back? You know, there are so many, the more than human world for many of us. I live in a place that's incredibly alive and also mostly rock. And I have this understanding now from living there that the rock is not only sentient and alive, but, you know, in the same way that hummingbirds and butterflies get like tons of press, right? They get all the credit for being so fabulous and fluttery. And yet the rock, if I'm willing to meet it, is so alive and so wise. And it's about the pacing at which I'm willing to arrange my listening and my presence. And sometimes the vision is the butterfly or the hummingbird, and sometimes my vision is the rock, and I've just got to like take it down a notch and give myself a couple of weeks more, a month more, or just, you know, and feel into it. And so just the trust, I think, is also important. And the one other thing I'll share before we play with a couple of other pieces is that I was talking to some folks who are working on forest preservation the other day, and they were talking about the real work being this integration and that into the idea that we're all one. We really are all one. And folks were struggling for the language because they have to talk to financiers and bankers and logging companies and all these people and try to convince them about market factors and all these things. So they're really wonky in their heads about the financial systems and how they're going to work those to save the forest. But what they know is that ultimately we're all one. And one of the things that struck me is that if we're really all one, you know, the one as in all of us, humans, the more than human world, the planet itself, divinity, the I and I, whatever it is that you would talk about it as, right? If this is all just, you know, it's one exquisite oneness, then the work that I'm doing to struggle to find my voice and the way I love myself in that, and the way I hold myself, and the way I honor myself and avoid cringing when I watch the video back of how I did, you know, all of those things are as much about the healing as the deciding where the regenerative agriculture goes and is planted on the earth, or how the animals are protected, or how we do restorative justice when we've seen cultural wrongs or societal wrongs. Like, it's all the work, right? If we're all one, then the work that you are doing, the sacredness with which you do the work around your own expression is the work, just as the reception of that expression is, and how that changes others, changes minds, engages people. And so just to remember that, I think of, I grew up anyway, very, very outcome oriented, you know, and I knew that it was complete when I saw the thing, you know, when it was on paper, when the decision was made, when there were trees vertical and not dead horizontal, you know, but it's all the work. It's all the work. It's all the healing. And if you know that, then the mundane is suddenly so sacred, right? The way we meet, the practice. If we're going to practice in front of the mirror, we're going to practice with our camera, and we're going to practice with one another, and then we're going to, you know, hone this craft of expression. It is the healing, just as that future state you saw once the thing has been heard and sets all those changes in motion is also the healing, right? So we don't privilege the outcome or the thing that happens because we talked good over the experience of the healing and the emergence that's possible as we practice it before we go to the audience. Yeah.
Celia, I had the biggest aha, which I love getting to have these aha moments in your presence, when you asked that question of the world I want to hold in me, you know, and that like every time I talk and I'm holding this vision. And when I looked at my list, which was, you know, that we live in a world that has beauty in it and connection and love, and that it's really healthy, like, and it's really sustainable, it just grounded in me that much more. I was like, oh, if I believe that like a healthy planet is possible, for me, when I speak that, I have to be at the most optimal health that I can possibly have. It's actually responsible. That's like my responsibility as someone holding that vision. Or if I believe and understand that beauty is something that feeds the soul, and we need to take a stand for this over and over and over again, and to walking in beauty is not some act of vanity, but is an act of responsibility of bringing that into the world. So it was kind of nice because it did a little like, it did a spin doctoring and amplifying this case that you're making. Thank you.
So lovely, so lovely. And this is the perfect time actually to honor a mentor of mine, Dr. Gordon Lebetz, who's actually a family doctor, but he was one of the co-founders of Surfrider Foundation. And I found myself with him for a workshop at one point, and nobody else showed up for the workshop. We were at a thing about the wetlands, and the head of the Army Corps of Engineers, who wasn't supposed to show up, suddenly came and was going to take questions. And all these people who wanted to protect wetlands needed to talk to the head dude, who happens to be the guy that likes to pave and put a lot of cement and dams and things where there's usually wetlands. So everybody ran off to the main hall to go talk to him. And I had this one-on-one with Dr. Lebetz. And he said to me, his formula, it was a formula for how to avoid activist burnout, much of which I did not honor, and I paid for it later. But one of the things he said, Leah, was exactly what you're talking about. And for all of you, you can imagine, right? He's a family doctor. So what's his advice for avoiding burnout? Well, you eat well and you exercise. One of the things he said that literally made me chortle was he said, go to bed when you're tired and wake up without an alarm clock. And I was like, yeah, right. In what life? You're a medical doctor. Do you live that way? Your appointments start at 8 or 9. Like, turns out he did. But one of the things he said was this piece that you're speaking of, Leah, because he said, look, you have to find a way to be in the experience of that future that you're creating, not just the present that needs the changing. And he said, if you are working to make sure that every child is healthy and has the meals that they need, you have to hang out with healthy children who have eaten well, not just the malnourished children who are needing the help in the moment that you're serving them and designing a food program at the school or what have you, that you have to actually be able to find even small things that are glimpses, so a brave ass dandelion that comes up through the concrete, can get me down on my knees on the sidewalk in a big city, just cheering the thing on, because it's a little expression of an example of this possibility that life wants to live and can regenerate even in a place that's covered in concrete. The last piece of advice from Dr. Lebetz, which also made me chortle, and I realized many years later that he was right, was that you have to have fun. And at the time, the coalition work that I was doing was anything but. And I actually didn't believe that coming together in community to make the world a better place could be fun. And he convinced me that it actually had to be, that was an imperative to one's own preservation and success, and he said, if you want to grow old and get gray hairs and still be doing this work for change, it's got to be fun, and so eventually I figured out that he was right and found my way there. So those bits, just to even further elucidate what you're bringing, Leah. So I do see a hand up. Is that a leftover from before, or would you like to jump in?
I wanted to ask a question. Do we have time
Please.
for that? Or
Yes, let's do it.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So when you were speaking and mentioning how doing the work is as important, or it's actually in oneness and unity with what's happening and what's going to manifest and change in the world, I did realize that for me, they were the same, but I did realize that when I do my work, I usually try not to take up so much space, and as if I'm asking for too much. And then I want to do this big thing in the world and just realize how that's not in alignment, like both are not in alignment. And I wanted to ask you if you ever in your work found yourself kind of being too small when it comes to your self-care or the way you do things for yourself.
Wow, what an exquisite question. How much time have you got is kind of the question, for that. I mean, I would love to have hours together, do lunch together and be in that inquiry. But what I will say is, I think that this is what you are touching on is so up for everybody right now. But as a white woman over 50, I am in a deep exploration of where and how much space is appropriate for me to occupy. And I have been all over the map, my friend. I've been vulnerably in the front and had that work. and been in the spotlight and occupied space and been in my full body and just done it. I've been misunderstood at times for that. And I've stepped back. I stepped back so far that I fell off the back of the riser and I wasn't even on the stage anymore. And then I was like in the crowd, and thank heaven I got crowd surfed, you know, kind of in a mosh pit way. Someone shoved me back onto the stage, but I was in the back. I've been in support spaces. I've been in public spaces that are more where my visionary identity is really out. And what I will say about this is this is a choose your own adventure, and knowing thyself is the most important piece of this. And this is where the personal ecology piece of this comes in. This is where, you know, the reason why I actually just came out of a year-long functional health coaching and integrative wellness training. And I did that not because I'm not going to do this work anymore, but because there's pillars of health that actually allow me to then be able to trust my inner guidance around where I should be, which spotlights I'm in, whether I'm broadening that light, whether I'm in it, whether I'm on the side, how I hold and share space. And if I'm doing a really good job of nurturing my body in terms of the foods that I'm putting in it and the timing of when I'm having protein and hydrating well, if I'm resting well, sleeping, and having the wisdom to sleep, as the author of this book, Essentialism, speaks of it, the wisdom to sleep, you know, not to practice the speech for the 14th time, but to actually go to sleep. When I'm really managing the way I move in the world and I'm taking care to move my body, I like to dance, I like to hula hoop, I like to play with my dog. And when I'm really addressing stress from the perspective of recognizing that it's my divine right to be happy and joyful and pleasureful, and that the work doesn't have to be hard. When I'm managing those pillars of health, you know, sleep, nutrition, movement, and my mindset, then I'm a little bit better at understanding how I hold space. But we are in a time where we are recognizing, right, that part of the way that the oppression has played out over 500 plus years, thousands, depending on how you're counting, is that the way that privilege and space and presence works is something that we have to reimagine. But in that reimagining, no matter who we are or what perceived or actual privilege we have a story to tell. We have a vision that must be spoken. And so this is part of the personal ecology part of this, you know, and how we take care of ourselves. And it's also an inquiry that is contextual, right? So it changes, it waxes and wanes. And I think that, again, for me, when I'm really tuning in with myself and I've been taking care of myself, I can kind of tell of, oh, am I small, making myself small? Or is there an unmet need or a fear or something I feel like I need to convince people of that is affecting the way I'm presenting? And I want us to have a little time to practice the pieces that you've prepared. So let me segue from this incredible question into how this stuff manifests in the way that we present. Because the style part of this, right? Content, intent, style, and mindset being these four pieces that I like to play with when we're doing presentations and public speaking. The style piece is about this, how you look and how you sound. And these are clues to how we are taking space in the world. And when we can notice what we're doing with our body or what we're doing with our vocal intonation, we get hints about where we need to take up more space or where we might need to position ourselves differently. And when we address those different things around how we look and how we sound, it actually has an effect on how we feel occupying that space. Yes, Vivian, thank you. A different way to look at the work. Yes, can be called love or play or yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So, for example, I'm going to give you one extreme example, but again, we could spend hours together on how you sound and hours together on what you're doing with your voice or your hands. But one extreme example of how you sound is uptalk. And you may now, when you are listening to the radio or watching somebody on television, start to notice uptalk. Uptalk is when the end of the sentence goes up and it sounds like it's a question. So an extreme version of that might be, hi, my name is Celia Alario. So, okay, well, you're listening to me on Living on Earth on NPR, and I don't even know if that's my name. And you're driving down the highway and you hear that uptalk. And, you know, having worked with literally over 1,000 different people in depth, and probably about 2,000 people who I got to touch for 2 to 3 hours before they went out into the streets to say, hey, hey, ho, ho, whatever it is, it's got to go. You know, uptalk is often, more often than not, something that shows up in cisgendered females and other people who have had a life experience where they have not been heard. And whether they are a PhD in neuroscience, or whether they are a lawyer, or whether they are a big deal in whatever way, uptalk happens. And when we get to the bottom of it, sometimes there's a recognition that something, somewhere along the way, they bought into what somebody was telling them about the fact that their voice didn't matter, or, oh, little girls should be seen and not heard, or whatever BS they got. And they bought into that, and that is manifesting in terms of uptalk. And sometimes it's deep work, and it's off my pay grade, because I'm a spokesperson coach. Is like, you gotta take this to your therapist, go do, you know, take it to your holotropic breath work or your trauma-informed yoga or whatever. But sometimes just by addressing it and changing the vocal intonation, the person starts to feel a little better, feels a little lighter. Huh, what do you know? So the listening to ourselves, yes, like using all the time, right? So Fiona, what's really going on with the ums and the ers and the likes and the right? What is that? Well, sometimes the distance between our brain and our mouth can feel like a really long drive, you know, and trying to get there, or you think you're fine and there's a bunch of hot lights and then things feel different, or it's all going swimmingly and then someone uses a particular word that's kind of a microaggression that really, or isn't kind of, but is a microaggression that really upsets you, and you find yourself triggered and off your game. In those times, we can get a little bit discombobulated, and what we're looking for is time. And so what I do with the ums and the ers and the likes and all that stuff, right, is to invite people to replace it with space. Because the silence in here may feel like a long time, but for those of us out here on the other side and listening in the studio audience listening, your pause for you to ground and just replace those words and the you knows and everything with space, and get rid of those likes and ums and ers. That space, that time is just, it's a moment. Most of the time we need it anyway, because you're saying amazing stuff that's totally touching our souls, you know, and we really need a moment to we need a beat to catch up with all that awesomeness anyway. So the taking the pause and the practice of replacing with space is a really great one. Extreme versions, I'm not a big fan of, like, you know, I guess back in the day they had like shock therapy to get people to stop smoking. I'm not a big fan of anything that's kind of that kind of training, but I was taught you can put a rubber band around your wrist. And I grew up in Southern California, you know, like was a huge part of every sentence. And when I was trying, because I was young and I needed to think about how I was going to look and sound the part in a different way so that I could, because people had bias, there was built-in bias because I was young, the same way that people have built-in bias for accents, how we all look and present. We're too old, we're too young, we're too this, we're too that. In the case for me, I really needed hardcore training to get rid of the like. And so the rubber band around your wrist, and every time you say like, and it only took 2 days of walking around with the rubber band before actually I really was a little bit more mindful of the like, and I gave myself the space. And so those are some examples, but, you know, working with sort of the nuance of how you sound is a yummy practice. In terms of how you look and what you're doing with your hands and your body, I just want to say one thing before we jump into some practice with the piece that you prepared. And that is, there is this incredible multi-dimensional connection between what we're doing with our bodies and how we feel about ourselves and what we're expressing. And you can come in and course correct and play with and fine tune that from many, many different directions. So you can fine tune what you're doing with your body and your posture, and you may notice a bump in how you're feeling. You can talk yourself and yourself into a different way of relating to yourself, and you might notice your posture change. You can come at it from many, many different directions. But one of the things that I think helps a lot, and I'm going to move my screen just a little bit for you, is this idea that comes out of Anusara yoga of inner body bright. It's essentially the open heart, right? So you raise and move back and roll back our shoulders and let our hands fall to our sides. And all of a sudden there's some openness in our hearts. And the way I feel expressing to you that way is so different than how I feel if I'm like this. And the way that you experience me is so different if I'm doing that, if I'm open versus if I'm constricted or I'm rolled in. And there are these things that happen that are really, they're small and often not conscious to us. Microfacial expressions that we all pick up on, little teeny shifts in tone and intonation that either help to reinforce or kind of go against and create a question mark with what we're talking about. In terms of what to do with your hands, it's a total do as I say, not as I do, because I'm like a Muppet over here with my hands. I'm half Italian and half Jewish. And my mom used to joke that it's a miracle that I could even, talk with my hands behind my back at all, or in my pockets. So I feel like I come by it honestly and I'm working on it. But when I get all hot and excited to be with you, I don't necessarily do the kind of modeling. I aspire to model in a 2-hour masterclass what I do with my hands in the way that I should. But quick thing to think about as we get ready then to put it all together a little bit in some practice with friends here in a triad that we'll jump into is the best advice I ever got is thinking about a ball. Maybe it's a big ball, a big beach ball, and maybe you're holding the ball at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Maybe you're holding the ball at 4:30 and 7:30. Maybe it's a big ball and you hold it for a little bit, and then maybe it's a small ball and it's in one hand, and maybe now the small ball is in the other hand, and maybe that little ball goes back and forth, and maybe you go back to the big ball and hold it. So it's an opportunity for you to think, if you are like me and have some challenges about what you're doing with your hands. You don't want them to be distracting. If they were up here, it would be really bad. I'm seeing them in the bottoms of the frame, and I'm still giving myself a B+ over here because it's still in the way. But that's one thing that you can do with your hands if you tend to work them. The other thing, if you want to play with this, is to watch politicians with the sound down is fine, and you can crank your music up, or late night televangelists who are incredible with the way they work their bodies and their hands. Like, you can literally turn on a late night televangelist, sound down, music up, and whether they're doing Old Testament or New Testament by the way they're working their hands, or you see a politician and it's that classic, like, what is the thing that the one politician always does, and we could play a game if it was, primary season of which candidate's hand movements am I giving you now? Because we see them and they pick this thing and they do it. My best suggestion to you is to use the ball idea for a bit, and then also to notice what's behind that, right? In the same way that we realized the filler words could be replaced with space, what are we doing with our body and how are we running our energy that gets us excited, makes us feel like we need to use our hands? And what can we do for ourselves before the presentation begins to work that energy? And I'll do things like a full body shakeout. I'll dance if I can. I'll talk to somebody who really loves me and accepts me. Things like that before I get into the thick of it. And then I've moved some of that energy. Even working with whatever spiritual practices you might have, or energetic practices, or martial arts, or exercise. You could probably ask a Zumba teacher who might have some really good advice for you about just how to be with your energy and marshal your energy so that you're running it the way you want to, right? Because it's a drip irrigation, not a fire hose, right? And that's how we want people to receive our words, and also how we want people to feel our energy. So we want to run our energy that way too, because we want to preserve the soil, right? So we don't want the big fire hose blast. We want the kind of moisture that seeps in and nurtures the soil and waters the vision so that it grows. I'm going to invite us to spend a little time in triads, and I'll tell you how we're going to do this now. This is your chance to share whatever you brought. something of about 3 minutes tops. And I actually want to invite you to try a couple of experiments. One is loosely track your own time, but also pick a timekeeper among the three who will, for each of you, have a chance to track time. And when the person is approaching, 2 minutes and 45 seconds, give them around, wind it up. If you're the person who's speaking, don't stop right there. You got 15 seconds, which might seem a short time in the arms of our beloveds, but can be a huge amount of time when you're expressing. So you wrap it up in a neat little bow. Each person's going to have the opportunity to go to share for 3 minutes. And then when you're done, each of the two observers is going to get to offer some feedback. And I want to offer this as an invitation for feedback. Again, if we were all together with Leah for 2 weeks on a beautiful tropical island, we could do all sorts of different versions of this exercise. But today, the kind of feedback I want to invite folks to share is at least one of each of something you loved and something you wanted to hear more of. Okay. And again, if what you really want is hardcore critique of the way you roll your R's or what have you, there's place and time for that, but not today. So around 5 minutes apiece, switch to person number 2. You get to have that experience again, go to the third person. So we'll have about 15 minutes. You can roll through everybody. And I want to offer a couple of things for you. Again, if you are the observer, remember that this content is a gift. This communication is a sacred gift you are receiving. So how do you prepare yourself to get a present and be in that energy as you receive? If you are the person who is sharing, I want to encourage you to notice if there is some, but not necessarily be distracted by inner dialogue. I like the talk to the hand or the thank you for sharing. So if something's in the way and you need to pause and take a moment and say, yeah, okay, inner voice, we'll get to you later, you can. I usually do that at the beginning, holding all those, asking everybody to talk to the hand. I clear space. Sometimes it actually requires some interesting visualizations around, like, imagining myself in the spotlight in the middle of a hockey arena where there's like plexiglass between my inner voices that are going to give me feedback and myself, whatever it takes to just get yourself there. And when it's time for you to receive feedback, notice how that feels, breathe it in, and then you can sort with kindness. You can release or you can integrate the feedback that you're getting. But really being loving to yourself, again, recognition that process of loving yourself through all this is the work and is as important as where you'll ever say this or how the world might change, and the world will change because of the way you are while you're practicing, as much as it'll change because you're on that big stage somewhere or you're wherever you are in the communication. The other thing is notice the body. The body is a copy editor. Your body temple is a copy editor. And as you do this presentation, you're going to notice how it lands. And if there are places that it lands in your body and you're like, yeah, and you're having the equivalent of yeah inside your tummy, then rock on. The copy editor is like giving you an exclamation point and that stays. If you notice a little something and it kind of just, feels like you need a burp, or maybe there's like something, you got an itch on your back, notice that too, and let the body temple, let the body support you in noticing how you'll revise later. Okay. And then no need to respond to the feedback you get, thank them and move to the next person. Okay. So that's the plan. Any questions on what we're going to do in the play space? Okay. So, Leo, thank you in advance for the work you'll do in reminding people where we are. But again, about 5 minutes per person. I like the idea of tracking your own time and loosely having somebody who's giving you the wrap it up. And I also want to just invite, no matter what you prepared or didn't prepare, don't read something word for word. Let it be there for you. The paper is a great security blanket. It's our pal, our playmate. But know that you are fully prepared, even if whatever you have for notes was gone, to speak this. This is your divine purpose. This is your vision starting to come forth here in 2021. building toward the future. So you got this without the paper. Give yourself the opportunity to play without a reading word for word. And we will see you back here in about 15 minutes. Okay, enjoy and play with this multi-tracking of noticing that to whatever extent you can.
So I'm going to cast an invitation to everyone, which is that Celia really gave us this invitation to really embody the world I want to hold in me. Okay. And that as we like, what is it to hold those things? And what is there something in you that wants to be practiced to engage that more fully than you already are? And can you do that and bring that to every single class for the rest of the times that we meet? So in your small groups, I'm going to invite you to make a commitment, and so if you're bringing more health or beauty or connection or love or whatever the things that you are bringing, what is something that you can actively, physically practice in the full embodiment of that? And I'm going to share that in our Facebook groups, and we will name that in our next class next Tuesday.
I hope you're going to write that somewhere where we can see it explained again.
In the follow-up email from this.
And I just want to say, as we wrap up, that again, I really want to thank you, Leah, for the opportunity and for the reminder of the way in which this work can unfold when I bring everything I offer to it. And just to share that, the buffet that we sampled today, starting in July, is going to be a big immersion program. And so if you're feeling like you want to go deeper, especially if you have or plan to have a platform to do public speaking from, I'm going to put my email in the chat there, and also Leah will follow up, and you can reach out and get in touch if that's something that's important for the next phase of your work. It was a joy to be with all of you, and thank you just for the grace and the depth and the way that you received and went into this playtime. Was a joy.
And I'll just make a ploy that I have had the privilege of being in the room with Celia when she does coaching for different people and they're speaking. And as you can tell, she's just such an empowering. I hate that word empowering. I don't know why. It's not enough. But talk about having someone that really understands what it is to be the wind beneath your wings. So if this is something that you really want to focus on, she's a great guide.